This is a L293D Motor Driver IC, and with this IC you can control DC motors. Although this is a really old model but still used by many people today. This IC has the capability of controlling two DC motors and a single stepper motor. By controlling motor, we usually control two parameters of a motor, the motor direction and the speed. These are the pins that we get in L293D IC. There are 16 pins in it. Let's start with the power pins. In this IC, we get two VCC pins, VCC1 and VCC2. Then we get 4 ground pins, 2 inside. Then we get enable 1, 2 and enable 3, 4 pin. So this basically turns on the channel for 1 and 2 and this for 3 and 4. So there are 2 pins in a DC motor that we're gonna hook up to output 1 and output 2. And that's same for enable 3 and 4. That's for another motor. And that makes sense that we need 2 pins for each motor and there are 4 output pins here. That means 4 channels, and these 2 pins basically enable those channels. So let's take a deeper look at input and output pins. So the input pins, input 1 and input 2 provide signal to the IC, and then the IC run a edge bridge to output the signal to motor. So that's why we can't directly connect input pins to the motor, but we need to run an edge bridge so that we can safely control the motor without any harm to the electronics. That's basically how we control the direction of the motor. As you can guess, the speed of the motor is controlled by the power provided in VCC2 and VCC1, not the signal provided in input pins. So now you see there are 2 channels for each DC motor and 4 channels in total. That means we can control 2 DC motors. But as a stepper motor requires 2 channels itself, we can control only 1 stepper motor with this IC. So now is the time to actually build something with this IC. I'm gonna start by placing the IC on breadboard. The pin 1 starts from here. So as you can see, I'm gonna use the Arduino Mega with this IC so we can further use codes to control the motor. So let's start by powering up the IC. So we can directly connect 5V power pin of Arduino to the IC VCC2 pin, and that should power it up. So let's connect 5V pin to pin VCC2. So there is another pin that will be connected to 5V, and that is enable 1 and 2. So this pin requires high to be enabled. So we're gonna just connect 5V to this pin. Now we can connect the ground pin. So there are 4 ground pins in this IC and we can use any of them. So let's connect pin 4, which has a ground pin, to Arduino's ground pin. Now this IC should be powered up if we connect power to Arduino. So now let's look at the input and output pins. So for now, I'm gonna just control 1 motor. So input 1 and input 2. Those are the 2 pins that we need to consider about. So as you can guess, we need to put high voltage in one input and put low voltage in another input. So the motor will be run in a specific direction. If we switch them, the motor should run in the other direction. For now, I'm gonna just connect power from Arduino to those 2 pins, but later we can obviously take help from code to control the motor programmatically. So let's connect input 1 to high voltage, that means 5V from Arduino. And that's on pin 2, so the wire goes right there. So I'm gonna leave the input 2 disconnected, that means it will have a low voltage. so we only need to connect one of them. So now we can get the output from output 1 and output 2, and those two pins will be connected to motor. So one wire goes to pin 3 and another one goes to pin 6 at output 2. There it goes. And now we should be done with the wiring part. Now we need to connect a motor with it so we can actually test to see what happens if we connect power to Arduino. So let's move on the testing part. That's it guys, we control the DC motor with Arduino and a motor driver IC. In next videos I will continue this series and build a Bluetooth controlled robotic car. So don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and thanks for watching.